Today I got to talk to none other than Tandy himself. We got to talk about how he went through the pro circuit, getting into content creation, working for Star City Games, the Apex gaming series and esports tournaments, Disney's Lorcana, and a whole lot more as we sleeve up and play against each other in this week's player profile.
I'm here trying to keep a straight face instead of saying fart jokes. Tandy here with another YouTube video for you. Today we're going to be playing some more Pioneer as we explore the Rona combo.
Anderson's going to quickly untap, take a draw. He's going to turn those Blight Agents sideways real fast. And that is going to do it. Todd Anderson's going to win this match and this tournament.
All right, so today we got Tandy. Very excited to have Tandy on. Let's just go right out of the gate. I just want to talk to you about this Apex gaming series. What is it a little bit, and how did you get involved?
Yeah, so the Apex Gaming Series is a tournament series out of Caldwell, Ohio. I'm working with the folks at Apex to do promotional work for them, but I also do real work for them. I provide commentary for their Magic events alongside Ross Merriam and a few of my other friends whenever Ross isn't available. And we just, talk about Magic. It's great. The tournament itself, it's, a collection of a couple events. Right now we are focused on modern, but I think in the future, we'll just kind of mirror whatever the RCQs are at the time. And by doing that, we'll essentially just always have our RQs be the relevant format of the RCQ season. And we're just trying to draw like the natural RCQ crowd while creating like a spectacle in more of like a con sense. They have a huge play space next door to their main area that they just remodeled. We can hold about 200 to 250 players pretty comfortably. And we're going to have a full command zone, prize wall, special guests. We got Corey Baumeister coming out this weekend and a number of other special guests as well. It should be a really good time.
Nice. So with the whole, excuse me, why is that not working? With the tournament that you guys are trying to build, I've kind of just caught recently into it when I saw you post about it on Twitter. How are they structuring to grow? Are they trying to hit the levels like the old SCGs used to be and stuff, or I guess what's their goal here?
So the way that I'm kind of positing it is that they actually have a lot of resources that just other card stores don't have. During the pandemic, they had just opened right before the pandemic shut everything down. And then when everything shut down, they basically just had to close up shop for a year or maybe a year and a half. And they had just bought a ton of camera equipment and stuff that they were using to make YouTube content and streaming and stuff. And that was basically just dead money for a while. So they found a way to leverage their camera equipment by contracting for the local school systems, and they basically just recorded all their high school football games and basketball games and stuff because they were all kind of in a bubble, and they would live stream it to a specific website so that the parents and people who wanted to watch the kids play just had a place to do it.
Okay. And then how did you kind of get involved with these guys? Have you been pretty much on board since out of the gate?
So I actually saw them on Twitter a year and a half ago promoting some events and stuff. So I reached out to the owner, Kyle Huck, and his brother, the co-owner, Taryn Huck, and asked them if they needed anybody to provide extra level commentary for their events, because they had already done, multiple big 5Ks at their home store, and they were really just trying to branch out. And so I pitched them all sorts of stuff. I tried to get them to come do a more traveling centric tournament series, where they come around to all sorts of different cities, very similar to the SCG circuit. Mm-hmm. But after I learned how their setup was, where they just had a bunch of camera equipment that was basically already paid for or whatever, it was just a no-brainer that they should just be doing all their stuff at their home store, right?
Okay.
And once we figured that out, it was okay, we just have to leverage the the resources that you have. And so we just started doing all of their events at their home store instead of having any sort of travel thing. We've been doing commentary for their events now for about a year, me and Ross. And then last year they had a full-blown, what I would call a leaderboard, all that stuff, where they were like having like a players championship style event at the end. And we're doing something similar this year too. It's just not quite the same. It's not like sorry, I'm just like playing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, no worries.
This is hard. This is hard to talk and play at the same time.
Sometimes it is. There's certain decks in the format that I won't play while doing this anymore because I can't do both.
Sure. So long story short, they had like a tournament series where if you did well, you would get points, and then those points would put you on a leaderboard, and the leaderboard would get you qualified, and yada yada yada. Turns out the RCQ system doesn't really lend itself to that too well, specifically because if you qualify for an RC, then you can't play any other events. And so the leaderboard system was just like kind of shot when they started tying it all to the RCQ system. But everyone should be tying it to the RCQ system. It should be like a nice collaboration between Wizards of the Coast and all the stores. And so this season, instead of doing that, they just have more events, and every event the top 2 qualify. And so it's way less about, just like, sorry. It's way less about, accumulating points over time, and way more about just doing well in the tournament series as a whole. And like, if you just top 2 any of the events, you get qualified. But it's not just the events at their home store. They actually sell satellite events to a bunch of the stores around town. They're in Ohio, and so they're like, selling a bunch of events to people, like stores all around Ohio, and maybe like in Kentucky and yada yada. Well, this breath weapon ain't so nice, huh? All right, you got me. You got the tater. Anyway, so this year, yeah, we've been selling satellite events. I think we have roughly 50 people or so qualified already for the invitational that's going to be in November, and we got a bunch of events before that, and that's what we're looking forward to by the end of the year.
It's cool. There's like they're starting to get back to it, but one thing like that, I took a break from Magic for a little while because it kind of seemed like the competitive scene was kind of, I don't know if it was like drying up or they were just trying to move away from it, but it kind of went from like GPs weren't really like broadcast very much. I don't think Star City, I think they were still doing their thing, but it could just kind of seem like they were kind of moving away from that competitive side. So it's nice to see it kind of come back, because I don't know, for me it was like, you just cleared out a weekend to watch it on Twitch when it was going live. So it's cool.
I mean, I'm right there with you. Like, I was right. I was in the thick of it with Star City. Like, they were my boss, right? Like, I wrote for them for a long, long time, and they made a decision at some point to move away from competitive in favor of, Commander and more casual stuff. And in doing so, they let go of some of the most prolific writers of our generation. They had Paulo Vitor Damaso, they had Brad Nelson, Jerry Thompson, myself, Sam Black, right? And anyone who made over like a certain amount of money, I don't know what the benchmark was or whatever, but those people just got canned, and they kept like a bunch of people that were good writers and friends of mine, but like when you get rid of Paulo Vitor Damaso or whatever, that's like a clear sign that the era is done, right?
So what was that like on that, like kind of seeing that kind of come to a close? Because you kind of got into Magic, I wouldn't say the old way, but like you kind of got into Magic in the way of like kind of grinding through like, live events, playing in paper and stuff like that before like a lot of the content creation came off. So what was that like kind of at seeing it, I wouldn't say fall apart, but like kind of seeing it kind of lose its place a little bit?
No, I feel you. I did kind of fall apart, man. Like it was a sad day in my life. Like, I wrote articles for Star City for, I don't know, like 13 years or something, maybe
Say
more
forever.
than that.
For the whole time I played.
yeah, when your job just like gets cut out from under you, like I don't, what are you supposed to do? Luckily for me, like my following was big enough on Twitter and in the Magic scene in general that I was able to make like a Patreon and kind of shovel over to that. But it was like a hard 6 months where I did not make as much money, doing that stuff that I did when I worked for Star City. And we had just moved back to Roanoke to after from California, and Callie started working at Star City again. And so when they let go of me, it created tension with her and her job. Like she didn't really feel like they wanted her around that much either, and so it just became this like weird thing where it didn't really feel like home anymore. And Star City had been home for like a really long time, so that's basically it.
Feel it. So
Man,
I want to know like where you kind of came up more through the tournaments and stuff. Like, can you kind
yeah.
of start about how you started going to these higher level events and kind of the ride to get to where you kind of got to?
So when it comes to the high level events back in the like 2000s, I would say that the PTQ system was actually pretty medium minus. Like it wasn't really that popular. There was, I think the majority of the PTQs that I won in that era were less than 60 people big, and over time, like into the 2010s, Magic kind of blew up in the competitive space, and it ended up just like making it so that a small game store could not host a PTQ realistically because the PTQs would be 120 people big and the store could only really fit about 70 people maybe. And so you'd have these little local game stores have to contract out frickin' holiday inns and other things like that to just, make ends meet and to just like get to that point where they could be sustainable. And so WotC stepped in and they started doing the PPTQ system. And the PPTQ system's a little weird, right? The PPTQ system was this two-pronged system where you had to win like a 10-person event, and that would qualify you for a 70-person event. And then the 70-person event, if you top 8'd or top 4'd, you could go to a 300-person event like a Pro Tour. But even then, it wasn't even really the Pro Tour. Like everything had been really watered down. And so I actually just stopped playing during the PPTQ time because I thought it would just be better to focus on, um, playing the SCG circuit. And the SCG circuit was where I got most of my success. I mean, you can see like almost all these trophies right here are almost all from the SCG tour. And when that's the case for like your career, you start to understand that like it's better to play in the circuit that pays you money as opposed to the one that pays you no money. And the PPTQ
True.
system, I was, it's so hard to make any money, and I was broke. I was perpetually broke from the time I was like 19 until the time I was like 30. And SCG was really the reason why I was able to climb out of the muck, just like beating up on their tour.
So, did you kind of go into the, the pro scene wanting to become like a professional player? Was that kind of like your goal, or is that kind of just
Oh
what happened?
yeah. Oh yeah. That was a goal for a lot of people in that age. And the dream of being on the pro tour was always like right there, but it was always like unattainable. And for me specifically, I went to 10 pro tours, maybe 15 pro tours. I'm not sure exactly how many I've been to. I had over 100 pro points when I stopped going to Grand Prix and when I stopped going to pro tours, but that was over the course of like a decade's worth of play. My last pro tour I played was Fate Reforged during the that time period. And now though, I want to get back. Like I've been playing the regional PTQs lately, like the RCQs,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to the regional championship in Dallas, but I did commentary over the regional championship in San Diego. So, it's basically just like I want to engage with the game when I can engage with the game, and it's just up to my schedule or the people who want to work with me when I get to if I don't qualify myself.
Gotcha. Do I guess now we're doing some commentary too. Do you like playing more or commentary more?
Personally, I like doing commentary more. I think playing Magic is really fun, but I like building decks more than I like playing the game. Building decks has always been one of my favorite parts. Iterating on competitive archetypes, trying to metagame against certain people specifically or certain decks specifically. And overall, I just think commentary though, since I've just been playing for so long, it's like guaranteed income whenever I'm going to work. Like whereas a tournament, like it's not a guaranteed income. Like I can have a bad weekend, and then a bad weekend means that I don't get to pay a bill sometimes or whatever, right? But commentary means like I'm just always available and it's always going to be good.
I think I'm dead to this.
Oh yeah, I didn't. So I've played this Affinity deck like 3 times in paper. I didn't realize that the artifact creatures had flying.
Yeah, that's what makes them pretty
funny.
rough.
This card's like way better than I thought. It's like the indestructible ones are incredible on defense, right? But the card in general, just giving them flying is just wild.
Yeah, it's really strong for sure. What do I bring in? So I guess I'll ask you as a pro player, what are some tips with sideboarding that you have?
In general, I would say, I mean, the meme or whatever is just like cut the bad ones, bring in the good ones. But I think that does a disservice to the art of sideboarding or whatever, right? Like sideboarding in general is just about being able to determine what your worst game pieces are in a specific matchup, or being able to kind of harmonize between your 75 to find the perfect 60 against your opponent. Sometimes a card that you side out isn't necessarily bad in the matchup, but it's not cohesive with your sideboard plan. For example, like a Fires of Invention deck, if you play Fires of Invention, you can't really play counterspells on your opponent's turn, right? So you don't want to have a bunch of things like negate in your sideboard. But stuff like Mystical Dispute's okay, because Mystical Dispute is like an aggressive counterspell that allows you to force through, your stuff through an opposing counterspell. And there are enough times in the game where you can just hardcast a Mystical Dispute, or you can counter a different blue spell early on, so it has value. But like the nature of building the sideboard is just as important as figuring out like what to cut, what to bring in. And it's like obviously one of the most difficult parts in Magic, and it's one of the things that people ask me for help on the most. And my content where I do a sideboard guide is always going to hit better than a piece of content where I don't do a sideboard guide. So
it's interesting. So I got to know too, you've been playing Magic for a long time, you're doing it professionally. Yeah. Doing it professionally, has it ever been kind of like where you kind of face burnout, like you're like, I want to maybe play something else, or like is it like has it become a job, or is it still like a passion, or is it both?
All right, so when I was a kid, Magic was like the most fun thing in the world, and when I was like 12, it was so much fun to me that I would like call my friends on the phone, and we would voice chat, like all 3 of us at the same time over the house phone, and we would just play our cards out and tell each other what we're playing, and we would like play our, we just played a game of Magic over the phone, and it wasn't always 2 players, 3 players sometimes, and we never got up to 4 players on the phone because it's a little hard to keep track of everything. But we were smart kids, and we could remember most of what was going on our opponent's side of the table because we played against each other like every week. And the older I got, the more I got into the competitive side of things. And every now and then, though, my local friend group would just like not want to play Magic anymore. And as someone who just like played a ton of Magic when I was a kid, the idea that people don't want to play Magic anymore was like kind of scary, or like, what am I supposed to do with my hundreds of dollars worth of cards that I've had to buy or whatever? Like, what am I supposed to do? And so my friends who were all in their 20s or whatever, when I was 15, like I was going down to the local game store, just like hanging out and stuff. But like, it was weird because they had income to spend on these other games, like other games that would come out, they would all switch to. Like we switched to this one game called Magi Nation. We played Dot Hack Sign. We played like one of the Star Wars card games or whatever. But we would just constantly be swapping between all of these games. And I couldn't really afford it that well, but they all could because they were just like adults with real income. And I was just like, 14 or 15 with no income. Over time, though, like, I got to really enjoy those games, and some of those games I remember very fondly, and Magi Nation specifically was one of my all-time favorite games. And it kind of died because they went hard making a cartoon for it, and the cartoon just did not hit. So
No.
but to answer your actual question, yeah, of course, Magic is been going on forever. Like any game, if you play it too much and you lose too much and you get frustrated too much, you just quit. And when you quit, like it is what it is. You take a break, you probably come back. That's the thing we used to always say. You never actually quit. You just take a break. And I think that is basically always held true throughout my entire life. And there are times where I don't want to go to Magic tournaments for a while. But there are also times where I force myself to go to Magic tournaments, and I almost always do poorly when that's the case. So, yeah, I think it's important to take a step back from the game when you're not having fun with it, and you just really want to make sure that it's fun first and foremost. And if you're not having fun, then it's good to just take a step back.
So with you doing it professionally and it kind of being, I imagine it's like your main source. Like how have you dealt with like that burnout period while trying to,
Oh,
keep
there's
up?
no dealing with it. It's just terrifying. You just have to, you just have to hope it works out. Like I'm not very good at planning. Like I think for most of the activities in my life, I know that I'm going to do them about a week in advance max. There are some events like the big tournaments we're going to this weekend at Apex where I've been planning it and helping set it up and stuff for 2 months, right? And doing a lot of promotion for it and stuff. But I don't know, like if you're not feeling it and it's your job, you know, most of the time I just switch formats. Like I played Commander for a little while on stream, but Magic Online is like was specifically really buggy and slow with Commander for a while, and so I could only do that for like a week or two before I got sick of it. But the different formats in Magic oftentimes are just really good for mental health because the card pool is significantly different. So that means that the gameplay is really different. And if you think about Magic as like this living board game where you just get to bring your pieces to the table and you can rearrange them however you want, that means that every single game that you play can be different if you want it to be, if you and your opponent agree that it's going to be a different game. And on Magic Online specifically, there's like queues and stuff that you can do where like you can queue into Pioneer, or you can go play Modern or Legacy. And there's some formats that I don't play very often that I really do like Legacy. And sometimes, if I'm just not really feeling it in Modern or Pioneer, I'll go play Legacy, man, and it's good time, But it's not hyper competitive, and I am above all like just a really hyper competitive person, and that's all I really want to do is just battle my friends and show them my supremacy or whatever, right? So.
Do you think you need that like really hyper competitive edge to like excel in the pro circuit, the big tournament circuit?
I'm under the impression that if you want to be successful in life, you need to be hyper focused on one thing. And you can choose that one thing whatever you want to be. You can become a carpenter, you can write a book, you can do whatever you want, It just you need to have your heart and soul into it. Humanity as a whole is just very good at figuring one thing out. Like as a person, you can just devote all your time to one thing. And if you devote all your time to Magic, then you will be successful. But if you don't, then you probably won't.
Understandable. So I am curious too, where you kind of came from more of the coming up through the pro circuit and stuff. What made you decide to move over to like content creation?
I got into content creation relatively early, considering my results. I started playing in or around 1999, 2000, casually. My very first tournament wasn't until like 2001, 2002. I played a Invasion Block PTQ, and that got me hooked in the Pro Tour qualifier scene. And around my area at the time, we just all started going to all the PTQs that we could, and ultimately, I had some small success. Like I won a PTQ. My first PTQ win wasn't until 2004 or 2005, and my first Pro Tour was in Hawaii, 2005, 2006 era. And it was the first Pro Tour in Hawaii. It was like super cool. Ravnica block was like the big deal at the time. I think it was Ravnica Kamigawa blocks smushed together. And I remember that standard format was so awesome. It was just like, I don't know. 20 or 30 viable decks, and everyone was just like really excited to play. And it was a great experience. Like, being a 19-year-old kid playing your first pro tour, just a dream come true for someone who had just put in a lot of time and effort to try to get there. And I was alone for the most part. Like I didn't really know anybody who played on that circuit specifically, and none of my friends had qualified except for me. And so I borrowed some money from my stepdad and flew off to Hawaii and blah blah blah, and bombed out and owed him $500 for about a year until I was able to finally pay him back. And then I kept trying, I kept playing, and sometime in like 2008, I think I won state championships. And around that same time, Channel Fireball had just begun, and they were competing with Star City Games, and they had actually poached, I don't want to say poached, but they had gotten some of the content creators from Star City Games to come make content for them. And they were getting names like Luis Scott Vargas, Huey Jensen, Jerry Thompson. Like, they were getting big names to come over, and it created like a rift in the competitive scene where, do you go Channel Fireball? Do you go for Star City Games? And that created like a vacuum in content for Star City. They had, three of their biggest writers or whatever just all transfer over to another website. And I reached out and I pitched them. I was like, hey, I just won states. I got this really cool fairies deck. I think it's really good. I would love to write an article for you, and if you like it, maybe you can keep me on. And eventually, I've never seen this card. What does this do? 2/3 flyer. Whenever this mutates, put a count on it. Okay, cool. Are you a mutate deck? Is this what's going on here?
Yeah, trying.
Okay. All right. So long story short, I started writing for Star City in like 2008. I wrote like a tournament report on my fairies deck, which I really loved. And we ended up just like getting paid $25 an article for like a year to just write. I actually had a column name. I was really proud of it at the time. It was called Constructed Criticism. I was so proud of that name. And like we just wrote all about whatever I wrote about whatever I wanted, basically just constructed wise. I would talk about my PTQs. I was playing a lot of Magic Online at the time. I'd write about my tournaments on Magic Online. Like, they had the same stuff that they have now. They had back then in like 2009. They were just getting started with it. So, got a little bit of deadly dispute to protect this boy. But yeah, so I had my column on Star City for a little while. I was only getting paid like $25 per article. It was not much, but I was just happy to be there, happy to get my foot in the door, and they were just happy to have physical bodies writing for them because they just lost a bunch of folks. So, everything made sense. Sorry, let me pop this ghoul.
Not Magoo.
Not Magoo.
So when you talk about like writing the articles and stuff, like, did you like basically apply to write articles, or were you kind of sought out after having some success to do articles?
So when I started at Star City, no one knew who I was except maybe some people in the Atlanta, Tennessee area. Like, I was a PTQ in boss where if people played against me, if they had played against me before, they knew that I was someone that they needed to take seriously, right? And when I won states, like, for me, that was a big deal. For my play group, that was a big deal. Like, I bragged about it, like it meant something to me, right? But then when I started writing for Star City, it started to go to another level. But I actually applied myself a lot more, and I was like hardcore testing, just to try to become the best. And I wanted to compete. I wanted to go to a bunch more pro tours. And then in 2009, I qualified for nationals on rating, and I qualified for multiple pro tours from top 8 in Grand Prix and top 16 in Grand Prix. And after that, I got like a little bit of a raise from Star City, but I didn't really get, approached by companies to write more or anything like that. It was just, I just kept asking Star City for more and more money over time when I would do well, and eventually, I was getting paid like $100 an article. And then Jerry Thompson ends up moving to Roanoke, Virginia, and I moved to Roanoke, Virginia too in like 2011. We got Brad Nelson, Jerry Thompson, myself around that time period, and Evan Irwin had moved there too to become the head of their like marketing and media. And Evan had the great idea to start doing this thing called where he just wanted to film us playtesting, right? He had Jerry and I come in and do a video where we just played Splinter Twin versus Affinity in Modern. And Modern was a brand new format. It had only been out like 2 months or something. I had just got back from the first Modern Pro Tour. I got my butt kicked. It was a lot of fun. And then we did this, and it was a big hit. Like, he put it on YouTube. Everyone loved it. And then after he realized that it was going to be such a big hit, he had Brad Nelson move to Roanoke to make these videos with Jerry. And I was a little disappointed because like me and Jerry had become good friends and I really loved like playing with him. And so when Brad moved, I was a little bit resentful. I was like, man, that sucks. Like, this is what I wanted to do. Like, why do you get to do this instead of me? Why would they pay someone to move out here? But of course, it's Brad Nelson. He was player of the year. He was on top of the world, 9th place at a pro tour, top 8 at the next one, top 8 at the next one. Like, just an incredible year in that era. And honestly, just like catapulted him to success and got people just like saying his name whenever you talk about competitive Magic, you'd say Brad Nelson. And so of course I just was like, fine, that it's Brad, whatever. I'm not close. When he moved here and Jerry moved here, we actually formed like a really tight friend group, and we'd like go to dinner all the time and hang out all the time and play Magic and travel. And Brad started coming us with to the Star City events and things like that, and we became really close friends, and all the resentment was gone within like a month or whatever, right? And after that, we started traveling a bunch, and I met a guy named Brian, and Brian was going to Blacksburg for college at Virginia Tech, but he really liked Magic, and he would drive up to Roanoke to play our weekly draft nights that we had at our friend's house. And I didn't know who he was at the time. But the more I talked to him, the more I interacted with him, the more I realized that he was actually like pretty good at Magic. The things he was saying were relevant, and like this guy like could do well at a bunch of PTQs, and ultimately like he did do well at a bunch of PTQs. And I was like, oh man, who's this kid? And then turns out it's just BBD, Brown doing, right? And we become fast friends. We traveled all these events together. A couple years later, we play a PTQ finals where the winner gets to go to the Pro Tour and the winner gets a box of chocolates. And he wins and I lose. And then he goes on to, fly across the entire world for the next 6 months to get enough pro points to go to Worlds. And does go to Worlds and then wins Worlds. And then my friend Brian is the World Championship of Magic the Gathering, the guy that I met in Roanoke, Virginia at a local draft night. How cool is that?
It is cool. It'd be cool to like, kind of see your friends and stuff succeed, because you're kind of like, it seems like the little bit I've been around the pro players, it kind of seems like everybody kind of knows each other. It's like kind of a pretty nice community. I got to remember how this mutate stacks. The over or under?
I think over is for stats. So if it's 3-4, you want to do over.
Yeah, I got to remember how this works. Mutate was...
That's fine. I never played Mutate in paper. I have no idea.
So I took like a lull from Magic. My local community dried completely up. We still today, nothing fires off in my local area. And then my friend group kind of didn't play as much either. So we kind of naturally dried up. So there was like this period where I finally was like, man, I'm going to play Magic again. Then I got into Magic Online, and with Magic Online being the price and stuff, how cards are, especially like rebuying cards, that was like drove me to Pauper, and then I kind of just fell in love with Pauper. But there's like this whole set where I'm like, still like to this day, because like when I got back into it, it was like, here's my companion, and I'm like, what's this? I targeted my creature, didn't I? Dang it, I thought that was a
yeah, you did.
I was paying attention more to talking.
Oh man, that's funny. All right, do you want to just go play again or whatever? That was kind of a big old bumble.
Yeah, that was I'll give you that one.
That's fine. We'll play again. But that no, Magic Online, it has a significant cost. They made it mirror IRL Magic very well, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And the way that they did it was really smart because they tied the Magic Online cards to physical cards by allowing you to accumulate a full set and then cash it in, and then Wizards would mail you a full set of the newest set. Over time, it used to be like free to do it, or it cost $5 or something. They slowly increased the price of doing it over time, where it ultimately became not worth it to send in your cards to get the full set, because $25 was the margin, right? The difference
Mhm.
between making any money and making no money. And so that thing kind of got lost over time, unfortunately. But I don't know. Magic Online is great though. It's been in my back pocket for 20 years now, plus being able to play the game and at home, not having to travel to play stuff, and having high level tournaments and stuff. But mostly I just use it for playtesting. And I think that that's one thing that people don't realize is how good Magic Online is just for physically learning how to play the game, learning the stops,
Mhm.
learning all the micro interactions are like really, really nice.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Where it was like, for me, when I was getting like kind of back into Magic, it was nice having Magic Online. It kind of, in a way, like hold your hand through like how interactions work and like how things kind of stack. Where before it was like, I remember, I my heart has always been with Magic is kitchen tabletop with my friends. Like that's where
Mhm.
I'm like the most comfortable playing. It's where I like to play the most. So so for me, it was like always something to like figure out. Like we would take time being like, how does this work? And so we'd have to like Google it, and figure out what was going on. Where now it's like I've played so much Magic Online, I feel like for the most part I can kind of figure it out on its own now. So it's kind of nice to like learn that like ruling, like stack rule, for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's a great learning tool, and it's not something that a lot of people utilize, in my opinion, like to the best of their ability. Um, hmm, I guess I'll play this Frogmite too. This Undying thing, it'll come back as the mutated thing again. Like, do both come back?
They
Is that
both
how that
come back.
works?
Yeah, they both come
Pretty
back
cool.
separate. So like I say, this is from my one thing that I've done with like playing Magic Online is I've kind of like went into like viewer submitted decks, and this is one of the viewer submitted decks, and I've had this, and then there's been a persist version that I've tinkered with, and I kind of like the Undying one a little bit better for the +1 counters, but it's been cool. The whole like little mutate interactions fun.
Yeah, I like the mutate stuff. It never really caught on in competitive because just like auras or whatever, it's hard to play a mechanic like that when your opponent can just exile it and then
Mm-hmm.
both things get exiled. It's just really frustrating to play against sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. All right, you go. But the mechanic as a whole is interesting, right?
So yeah, it's been
I
pretty fun to play. At least I think. What
mm,
do I want to do here? But yeah, sometimes like when I'm doing these interviews, it's kind of like you kind of get either you do what I did last game where you're just kind of focused on talking and then you punt really massively, or like you over, or like you get too focused in the game and then like the conversation suffers. Do you ever feel like when you're
yeah.
doing your streams or anything like that that it's maybe sometimes hard to balance the both?
I think that I am not very good at Magic when I'm talking. And I know that I'm much worse when I'm streaming than when I'm not streaming. I can feel it, right? I can see it in
Mm-hmm.
my results. I can feel it. And people don't really understand that that's just going to be the case most of the time, because if like part of Magic is having your like sleeping mind play the micro stuff
Mm-hmm.
while your forebrain or whatever focuses on the macro, and you build those like really solid mechanics early on in Magic by just like repetition. You create neural pathways in your brain that are just like reflective of the little game actions that you're doing at all times. And when you're talking and reading at the same time that you're playing, that part of your brain is not working at 100% capacity. I would say it's probably working at closer to, I don't know, 60%, maybe 70%, depending. And when that happens, you're just, making little misclicks and making little mistakes all the time that you wouldn't normally make when you're hyper focused. Man.
Although, if I remember right, this Sacred Cat does not give it lifelink because for some reason the tokens don't.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I didn't know like why that works that way. It doesn't make sense to me why it's set up like that, but it's what it does. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go bargain Sagnus Wellspring. Yeah, streaming. I mean, look, if you're talking, if you're reading, if you're doing something else while you're playing anything or doing anything, it's the same as texting and driving, right? Like everyone,
good comparison.
when I was a kid, like cell phones didn't exist and driving was like not usually distracted, but then cell phones got more popular and then distracted driving was like a big deal, like a really big deal for a while. Let me cycle some of these real quick. Just got these chromatic stars just kind of rotting. Oh, pretty good.
It's actually
Blood Fountain.
a funny story about the texting and driving. The only time my mom always let me skip school on my birthday, and the only time that I went to school on my birthday, we were coming home and
Don't block. I'm
block?
gonna galvanic blast. I'm gonna gal blast your 2/3 before blocks. I just didn't click. Unblock.
Sorry.
It's
You're
fine.
good.
I'm just gonna burn my gal blast on it because I meant to do that, but I hit F6 because I'm playing too fast.
No worries.
All right. Sorry.
All right. But yeah, the only time I went to school, my bus was hit by somebody texting and driving.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I don't want to get too big into the ramifications of distracted driving or whatever.
No,
that's just the same thing.
Yeah, I just thought it was you were talking about the analogy, so I just thought that was like a funny story. But yeah, that's what I punt a lot on stream, but I don't. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It does not matter, and that's what I used to get mad when I'd make a mistake. I'd used to like, oh man, I wish I wasn't streaming because then I'd be playing so well. And then I realized that like all I'm doing is practicing, right? This is just practice. This is not the real thing. This is not like no one cares if you mess up. It's like the meme from Jurassic Park, like, hey, this guy's got dinosaur eggs over here. No one cares, right? Nobody cares.
Right.
And so when you start to think about streaming and playing on Magic Online and stuff like that, you start to understand that like losing doesn't matter. It's all about figuring things out. It's all about the puzzles. And yes, of course, winning matters a little bit because it costs money to play the game. And if you don't break even or do better, then you're just kind of like burning your resources. But, if you're streaming while you're doing it, normally those resources are being replenished by your viewers, like giving you donations or subs or even just like helping you through advertisements or whatever by just being eyeballs. And streaming is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be creating an entertaining experience or an informative experience. Brad actually coined this term a long time ago, infotainment. That's what we're in the business of, in entertaining and informing.
I like that.
Yeah.
In terms of like streaming or like, the pro playing and stuff, what would be like a piece of advice you'd give to somebody who's either wanting to break into streaming or break into like the pro circuit?
If you're going to break into the pro circuit, you just have to play 1 billion matches. That's the only way to do it. You can be naturally good, like Nathan Stewart, I think, is like a once-in-a-generation prodigy. Before him, I would say probably the closest would be Paulo Vitor. And before him, I think it was like Luis LSV. And before him, it was like Kai Bood. And that's about the extent of my interaction with the game. Before that, there was a bunch of people who didn't play anymore when I started playing. So those guys, growing up, they excelled because they were hard workers and naturally good at the game. I excelled because I was a hard worker. I don't think I'm naturally good at games. I think that my intuition is usually pretty weak, and my strength comes from repetition and figuring everything out beforehand, so that when it comes time to play the games, I don't have to make like a complex decision too often. And I already know all the scenarios because I've just already done them in my playtesting. And traditionally speaking, my best tournaments are formats where I played thousands of matches before the event, thousands, and I just don't do that anymore. It's just not very fun, and I've kind of proven myself over time, and now I just play when it's fun, and I do commentary because I like to talk about it. And every now and then I'll get a little whippersnapper, one of these kids tell me, like, oh, things were different back in the day, and it's like, you're right. Back in the day, the deck lists were like a lot harder to find, and so
Yeah.
you couldn't just like pick a deck off the internet and like do well with it or whatever. Dang.
So back in the
Going
day,
my
how
land,
did you
huh?
guys find deck lists like before, the internet really like took off, like in those
All right,
early
so I'm
stages?
not I'm not like I'm not like 80 or whatever, right? Like
I know, but
the
yeah, it's
internet has
existed
existed
for a
most of my life,
while,
but
but
you're
like I had dial up till I was in high school, man. You know what I mean?
no,
Like
I know, I get you. So when I was in how old are you? I'm curious. I'm
29.
37.
29.
29. Okay. So when I was growing up, I didn't have a computer in my house until I was about 14 years old. Uh, I lived with my dad for a long time, and we just lived in the middle of nowhere, and it was like hard to get internet in the middle of nowhere.
Hmm.
And so, but I had internet at school, and I was very interactive with that culture and stuff when I was a kid. And one of my teachers, my computer teacher, actually let me use her credit card one time to buy magic cards off of a website. And I
Damn.
just like handed her, the $15 or however much I spent, right? And she was just super cool with it. It was like a weird culture thing where a lot of the kids in my school started to like want to play Magic, but none of us really had access to the internet, and we didn't have like a game store near us. Like we didn't have a store that we could go to actually physically buy cards. I think the nearest place that I could buy cards was there was a Walmart complex about half an hour away that had a Babbage's or like a FYE or something like that. But that
Mm.
was like the extent of my ability to acquire Magic cards, which I think is pretty funny. And then let's see. Sorry, I'm getting distracted.
No worries.
And then you know, when I got into high school, I that was when I finally had like a computer with high speed internet, living with my mom like in Birmingham, Alabama, going to like one of the nicer schools in the area, living in a nicer area. It was just like well populated, and so we just got good internet. It was like DSL or whatever the equivalent of fast internet was in 2001 time. And the game changed. Like Magic Online came out when I was like 17 years old or something, 16 years old, and I just started doing that constantly. It was great. And like that's kind of just where I started getting really good at the game because I could just play more. And when you can physically do something more often, then that's the dream, right?
Right. That's why I grew up in like a rural area, so like we didn't have like high speed internet offered to us till like I think it was starting to come around when I was like in the 8th grade, so it'd been like
Mm-hmm.
2008, and then
Mm-hmm.
we got it when I was a freshman. In like 2009, we finally got it. So it's
I mean, it's crazy now, right? Because every
mhm.
every single kid has that in their back pocket. They have they have the world's accumulated knowledge at their fingertips at all times, and it's just so ridiculous to think about as an adult now that that was just not a thing for the first third of my life or whatever.
Right. It's like, yeah, I didn't have a cell phone until I was also a freshman, so it's weird to because like I got a nephew who's like 4 who has like an iPad now,
Yeah.
It's like um what do I want to do
Kitty.
here? Let's do this.
Mm.
Now I'm not sure. Okay, it does get the counter. It's like I'm not sure how this will work. So, I always say sometimes I'm on stream that we're here for scientific research, just seeing how cards interact.
I do that too. Like every time a new set comes out and there's a card, or if I come across an interaction that I've never seen before, it's just like, this. I'm somewhat confident that this is going to be a bad play, but it's way more important that we know that all of us know it's a bad play,
Right.
for the future.
Feel it. So, do you do much like Arena, or are you mainly just Magic Online?
I played a little bit of Arena in the first couple years it was out. I thought that the economy was predatory, and for even as someone who made decent amount of money making content, I felt myself burning just like hundreds and hundreds of dollars whenever I would play Arena. And I would only play Arena for like a couple weeks after a new set come out, and then I would just ignore it for a while. And man, this thing's got lifelink. This sucks. I don't think I'm gonna win this one. Anyway, so I eventually just stopped, and when Pioneer came out, it was very easy to just switch over to Pioneer only. It was like pretty popular when it first came out, and during the like first 2 months that the format existed, they did the thing where they would ban a new card every week, and it was a lot of fun, just like playtesting with those folks, or like playtesting in that vein, and yeah, the Arena stuff just kind of fell away after that. There was no real reason to play it because it cost too much money. I could use a borrow service on Magic Online. My guy's flying in is indestructible. I don't know if that matters, but I guess yours says lifelink. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, just be aggressive.
I like it.
So, with you talk about like some of the bands and stuff, do you think I've seen everybody's like different opinions and stuff online about the recent ban announcement. Do you think they missed something, or do you think it's all good?
I think in the recent ban announcement, it was nothing. Like the unbanning Preordain is like we don't want to ban the One Ring, right? That was kind of the thing that I felt that they were saying. We don't want to ban the ring, so we're going to unban something. I think a lot of people thought that was going to be the case, and myself included. And just Preordain, I don't think is enough. I think Preordain is like a very powerful card, but we have moved kind of away from that type of magic in Modern in favor of like a entirely new animal. And I just don't think Preordain moves the needle enough. I don't think that it's good in decks with the One Ring, and I don't think it is necessarily like a good card against a deck playing the One Ring. It is specifically good at finding Underworld Breach, and I think that there's going to be like a Storm combo deck that focuses on Underworld Breach as like a primary kill condition. And I think that when we get to that stage, it'll be like we'll understand a bit more that the impact that Preordain has. Just the effect of digging 3 cards deep looking for a specific card. You need that specific card to just have a lot of its own power inherently inside of it. And I think the Underworld Breach is a perfect example of that type of card. Now, we can get into the, do you think Underworld Breach is healthy for Modern? And I have said no for the entire time that I've played Modern, that it's been legal. I think the card Underworld Breach should never have been printed. I think it's a blight on the game. And at some point, I hope that it gets banned, because there's nothing more frustrating as someone playing a not very interactive deck and then just killing you out of nowhere, right? Like that was like the Splinter Twin problem sometimes, where your opponent would just ignore you and then kill you on turn 4. It's like a very unsatisfying play experience. Underworld Breach is like the exact opposite. It's like you go kill your thing, kill your thing, kill your thing, kill your thing, kill your thing. Oh, turns out I can just play this 2-mana enchantment on turn 5 or 6, and I have enough stuff in my graveyard where I just kill you. And I just don't think that that's the type of card that should exist in Magic. And it was immediately clear to me upon seeing it that it was going to be as good, maybe better than Yawgmoth's Will. And Yawgmoth's Will was like one of the sickest cards ever printed. It's like pretty regularly talked about as one of the better cards in Cube because it allows you to do these dark ritual chains. And in a lot of ways, it is better than Yawgmoth's Will because the cards that you cast don't get exiled. And so you can have these repeatable effects. And that's just like not something I think should exist. And I would much rather, like, if Preordained gets it banned, great. I would be very happy. I know that Ross Miriam and Corey Baumeister, they love the deck. My friend Jessie Titty Pills, she loves the deck. But like, it shouldn't be there personally.
Gotcha.
Ooh, got a tough one here. All right, I think I got it. I think you're going to be real sad when this turns over.
Probably.
Let's see. So I can attack for 4, put you to 7. Government. Okay, so I have a kill. Right, I have Mirror Enforcer, Galblast, Makeshift. So I'm going to kill you with this, but I want to keep playing, so I'm going to do it differently because I have a lot more cool stuff going on that I want to do.
So are you very familiar with Pauper, or are you just now kind of getting a little bit into it?
All right, so I played like a ton of Legacy back in the day on the SCG tour, right? But I would not consider myself a Legacy player because the Legacy format as it exists now is drastically different than what it was when I played. And the same is true for Pauper. I played a lot of Pauper in like the 20-teens era, and now I just don't even think that it looks close to that, like not even close to that. So I would say that I'm not really a Pauper player, but I'm getting back into it. Like I said, I've been to 2 Pauper Tuesdays at Star City Games. Like that, Star City Games is my local game store. They obviously employed me for quite some time, and a lot of my friends are still employed by them. And so we frequent the home store, and they have Pauper on Tuesdays. Thanks in part to one guy who just like brings the deck boxes or whatever every week for everyone to play, but also for Braden Bowdish, who does something similar, and another friend of mine, Bo Matt, who's my co-host on our new Lorcana project called The Lost Boys. And they all love Pauper. And so Tuesday Night Pauper has become somewhat of a staple around Roanoke.
So,
but I've only done it a couple times.
Right on. So how is the Disney Lorcana? I'm kind of interested in it.
Well, I'll say this. I didn't think I was going to like it very much. I'm okay on Disney, but I'm not like, oh man, I need to go watch every Disney movie 3 times. Like, that's not who I am. But I grew up, in that era where animated Disney was like really popular. I saw Aladdin in theaters when I was like 6 or something, and The Little Mermaid I saw in theaters. And I just remember going to all these things when I was a kid. And playing the game now, like, I think it's going to be more geared towards like family friendly audiences, but I think that's great. We were at Gen Con this past weekend, and there were tons of people like waiting in long lines to get this Lorcana product. And when I was tweeting about it and talking to my friends about it, everyone just kind of assumed it was just a bunch of sweaty Magic players looking to make a quick dollar by just like going to buy stuff and then selling it immediately. And those people were definitely in line. But what I saw were families. I saw 2 adults with, their 2 or 3 kids standing in line for hours so that they could buy this new card game from Disney, because these Disney adults who grew up on Disney like I did, who are really into it, now have been able to share that with their kids because Disney has become like a mainstream thing, and it's become like a really popular mainstream thing. And so you're getting basically 2 generations of people in love with the same IP. And now there's this game and this is like Ravensburger, I'm not going to say they're like a nobody store. Like, they're obviously a big deal, and their parent company is a big deal too. They're a board game store, they work on board games. Their audience is more for like in the hundreds of thousands. And I think that Lorcana is going to be in the tens of millions. I think that Lorcana is going to be like maybe the biggest game ever.
Really?
And I don't know how to explain it other than I just see like the perfect storm happening right now, and I don't really know how to talk about it otherwise. I just feel like we're just getting to the point where Magic is jumping the shark a little bit, and they're just like strip mining their player base, but they don't have a natural predator. They're growing fat on their own product, and there's no one to punish them or push back against them. But now there is. Now there is. And if you were there, if you saw the buzz in the room like I did, you know that there's something more there than meets the eye. You know that the potential is there because it just has a lot of the same type of mechanical stuff that Magic has, and it's got a lot of the same things that people really like about Magic. But the IP Disney is just so incredible for them to have at their disposal. And I just think that it's going to be the biggest game on the planet. And it might, Magic might not never be toppled. Magic might live forever. This is not the death of Magic or whatever. I'm not saying that. But like, if Magic was ever going to get challenged, if Magic was ever going to get beaten by another game, it's going to be freaking Disney, man. Like,
Have you got to
anyway.
play it yet, Lorcana?
Yeah, so at Gen Con, my buddy Braden Bowdish, he bought some of the precons, and we've been playing with some of the precons and that type of thing. And we got some like booster packs and some other things to mess around with. But there's also like an online client that we've been toying around with, and it has like a full engine already, and it works pretty decently too. It needs to be cleaned up, and obviously Ravensburger is probably going to come along and do something similar. Target player exiles a creature they control. All right, yeah, this one. I don't need that guy. But yeah, I think the lead designer of Lorcana, Ryan Miller, he I think is really on top of it, and he worked for Wizard of the Coast for a while, like some time back, and I just think that he knows what he's doing. He's gonna have a team around him that knows what they're doing, and the professionalism that they showed at the event. So I don't know if you read about it or heard about it, but on the first day, on Thursday of Gen Con, the doors were closed until like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or whatever, right before they opened the vendor hall for everyone to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, what ended up happening is that it was just a giant blob of people, like thousands and thousands of people, just not necessarily waiting to get to Lorcana, but waiting to get into the vendor hall, right? But a lot of people were there for Lorcana, and then another large group of people just to come into the vendor hall showed up, and it created like a super blob where like a pack of 600 hit a pack of 1,000, and it was just wall to wall people in this like not very large space, and there was it was a little bit of chaos. One of my friends sprained their ankle. Like it was like not great. But they worked really quickly with Gen Con. By the end of the afternoon, they already had like a special queue set up for people who wanted Lorcana specifically. They had a lot of staff at Gen Con that were literally just there to wrangle the Lorcana line. And they even set the Lorcana line to start the previous day at 6 p.m. You could get in line for the next day's product where they would sell it to you at like 10 a.m. or whatever. And they had people camping out like it was Woodstock 98 or whatever, man. Like it was wild. And but the response was really fast. Like they had a problem, and then it was fixed, and it didn't last very long. And to me, what that signifies is that the people who are working on it and the people who are in charge of it know what they're doing. And what is this? I'm cursed. Okay, I lose a damage per creature. Cool. I'll take one. Anyway, they know what they're doing. When I actually played the game for the first time, I played a full game on I think it was either Friday night or Saturday night. I think it was Saturday night. I wasn't having the best time at Gen Con, and then Saturday night, a buddy of mine, Braden, he's just like, "Hey, do you want to play some of this new game, right?" And I said, "Sure, let's play." I sat down. He handed me a precon. I, was getting explained how the game worked, and everything just made sense. The the reasons, like whenever you play a new game for the first time, a lot of times it's so complex that a lot of the rules that people are kind of yelling at you while you're learning, they uh, they just kind of disappear in the back of your brain, and you don't even remember what they were talking about. You don't remember what they said 2 minutes ago, right?
Right.
And there are other instances, though, when you play a game where everything just kind of clicks into place like Legos. And when I was playing with Braden, everything just started to make sense. And when everything makes sense, the new rules are easy to learn because the old rules are already in your brain and they're already solidified. And I felt a lot of that when I was hanging with Braden and playing with him, where the moment that I was like, there was no time where I was just like, God, I don't really get how this works, right? The moment he explained it, I was like, oh, okay. Like the creatures, they don't attack; they can tap to gain victory points, basically. And then creatures can attack each other, but only if they're tapped, right? Only if they're exhausted. And so, if you exhaust your creature to gain victory points, it becomes prone to attack. And so, like that was immediately like, oh, that's a cool system. Like that's not something I've really experienced directly before. So that caught my attention like really early. And then the more we played, the more I started to see like how to position your creatures to like jockey for board position, board supremacy, how some creatures lined up with other creatures. Oh no, this desert's gonna chew me up, isn't it? Oh man, I forgot about desert. I haven't played this card. I haven't played against this card since Tom Sparrow Block Constructed, I think.
I gotta remember how it taps.
I think you need to. I think you need to set a stop during the damage step. Only during end of combat step.
I think it's end of combat.
Put a stop on your end of combat if you haven't.
Yep, I got it.
Cool. All right. Anywho, so he's teaching me this game. Everything's making sense. Everything's clicking. Game 1, kind of a slog. I probably played pretty bad. Whatever. He conceded really early because I was beating the crap out of him. But I was like, don't do that. I need to see the whole game. I need to like figure out what does the end game look like. And he goes, oh, you're right. So we started again, and he beat me this game. But we got to that end game that I was talking about, and it was like kind of hard to navigate and a little scary. And my deck was like really good in the early game, and his was really good in the late game. And so we started to see that like some of these cards, the way that you sequence them matters quite a bit. Man, this Trespasser's Curse is hurting me. I guess I'm still at 17. Ill-gotten gains. At the beginning of your upkeep, deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain a life. You sack it, deals 4 damage to target opponent, you gain 4 life. Okay.
So one of my favorite decks of all time is 8-Rack. And I've been Ill-gotten Inheritance and Dog Pursuit is kind of rackish effects. Kind of. And so I've been trying to make these cards work for a long time.
Seems cool. The brain drain's nice. Need to have my big thing that I've noticed in Pauper is that there's just like not sweepers, right? And so creature strategies like Affinity, other things, that they can be sometimes difficult to overcome just simply because there's like no way to kill 2 or 3 creatures for like one spell,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna draw 2. These Reckoner's Bargains, these Deadly Disputes, the draw 2s in this format just make the games feel like they take a very long time. Like every deck can just kind of play Magic forever, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I'll say there's a lot of like, it's kind of insane with Pauper, like the amount of draw power that's in this format.
Right.
Like, there's just so much of it.
And I really like these old Pristine Talismans, man. You're just gaining so much life every turn with that and the Trespassers.
Oh, that's right. End of combat.
Oh, dang, I probably shouldn't even attack. Keep forgetting about it. It's alright. I'm going to draw 2 again.
The deserts are more newer editions. So I gotta remember how they properly work.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of the idea is like you just slowly bleed your opponent to death and just try to like maintain the board.
It. Seems cool.
It's one thing like the community I've kind of gotten behind me in Pauper is very much like brewer mentality wise.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really fun to like see a lot of these wacky brews and stuff. And that's what I've been trying to get Ill-Gotten Inheritance work for a while, and this is a deck by a follower, Pexuman, who, I don't know, when I got this list, I was like, this is probably one of the best iterations I've seen of the deck so far.
Yeah.
But Pauper is kind of in a spot right now where it is a little tricky to... it is a little tricky to, like, brew in currently.
Mm-hmm.
Need to scry here.
Thought you were gonna get my gains.
Probably should bottom that.
Oh, this thing hits me every turn. This card's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it. And that's what you like stack it with another card called Dog Pursuit. It's the exact same effect, except for it doesn't have the pay 6 and sack it to do a bunch.
Gotcha. Now, one of my favorite decks when I was growing up was a Soul Feast deck. Just drain your opponent for 4 or whatever, drain life.
Yeah, I don't think I know that one. I started playing. I got into it around the Return to Ravnica era.
It was a really bad uncommon. It was just in every core set for a while, and when we did drafts, like we did core set once a year. And Soul Feast was just like 5 mana, drain your opponent for 4, you gain 4. That was it.
Gotcha.
I'm just like not close to killing you. You're just getting so much life every turn. This is wild. I need to draw a Thoughtcast. I need to start chaining some stuff together. I've drawn too many lands. Like my hand is just a bunch of lands and like cast downs or whatever. Hey, Thoughtcast, let's go. Look, all you gotta do in this game is complain a little bit, and then it all comes together.
That's what it seems like. Normally pull it out.
Mm-hmm. I'll get back these two.
Kinku is such a good card, though.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, kind of close to dying, which is scary.
But so am I.
But I gotta try to kill you, you know? I gotta try.
Just gonna do this now.
Save some time. Feel you. What were we talking about?
I don't know. Kind of spaced out once we got into the game. Yeah. Oh, Lorcana.
Dude, sometimes Magic gets so good that everything else blinks out. Okay, so yeah, we're talking about Lorcana. So after playing it, you start to see the things that are good and bad about games after just playing a few games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to compare it to Magic, the one thing about Lorcana that I'm not stoked about is that their resource system, it's actually super interesting. It's like every single card in the game either has a symbol at the top left that means either you can only play it as a spell, or some of them you can play as land. And so the cards that can be played as land have more inherent value in your deck because they're just better at multiple times in the game. Early on, they're good. Later in the game, they're good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Okay. Sure. And then, but once you play it as a land, it turns face down, and it essentially is just a blank piece of paper. And that's one design space that Magic uses very well, is like mana. And I just wish that that there was a little more in that vein in the game, because when the cards are face down, they become blank. And I just wish that there was slightly more to do. But overall, there's 6 colors as opposed to 5. Each color has its own identity that's not necessarily tied to anything Magic related. I don't know. I'm making a podcast about it now. I'm in love with the game. It's so much fun.
I'll have to check out the podcast. Because I think like That could be a game that I think my wife could really. She's big into Disney.
That's the thing,
I
man.
think she would be into
That's
it.
the thing. It's going to draw so many people into the space that wouldn't normally be in the space. You know, families, spouses. For every person who would play Magic, normally that person has one or two people that they're very close to in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Kids, parents, spouse. And those people don't engage with Magic with them. And I think that the complete opposite is going to be true for Lorcana because people just really like the Disney IP. And I just think that that's it. All right. Here we go. You've been scrying every turn. You find spells every turn. That's so lucky.
Trying
Just
to.
kidding. I know. I'm just kidding. All right. Don't kill me. I'm going to not very much life soon.
Actually, I tapped too many. All right, let's do this before I draw. Bottom the land and draw. Okay.
I just want you to know I've had this Metallic Rebuke in my hand since like turn 2. And you've just always had 3 mana to pay for every removal spell.
Right.
And just hasn't done anything until now.
Yeah, got me.
Alright, what we got? I'm gonna slam here. Is this lethal? I'm not gonna play creature for combat. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The desert doesn't do it until after damage. I think I got you.
Yep. I'm dead.
Awesome.
I'm dead. Well, you want to
Cool.
do one more?
I think that I'm cool on games played. I need to get some breakfast. I'm pretty hungry. I got a lot of work to do today, specifically because I got a new podcast. Right?
Yeah.
That's what we were talking a little bit about. So, me and Bomac Courier, who's a kid who moved to Roanoke to work for Star City about 2 years ago. Him and Braden are roommates, and they have gotten me into Lorcana the same way they got me into Pauper. And I'm like really invested in these two kids, and we've been going to tournaments together. Braden rode with me to Gen Con. I hung out with Matt last night at Pauper, and then we got Waffle House. Like these kids are becoming like really good friends of mine, and me and Matt decided to start a Lorcana content stream together where we're going to do YouTube videos where we just talk about the game, we play the game, we build decks, we make cards. We've got a Patreon set up, and the theme is the Lost Boys. And I'm a big fan of the movie Hook, starring Robin Williams, that came out, I believe, in like '92. And that was a lot of people who play Magic. They grew up watching like Shrek, and when they were a kid, they just had Shrek playing on repeat in their VCR or whatever, or their DVD player. And my movie was Hook, and I didn't realize it until a couple years ago. I decided to rewatch it with my wife, and when we watched it, I was just saying every line. Just like I just knew the line that was coming, and I didn't realize that I knew all the lines until they were happening. And I had this like profound moment of like remembrance of when I was a kid and how much I just loved the lore behind Peter Pan. But the movie Hook specifically hit me so much harder as an adult because I went from being one of the Lost Boys as a kid to now I'm the Robin Williams character where he's old Peter Pan who's all grown up and he's having to remember everything and he's having to come back and save his friends. But and as like an old person, like I'm getting I'm getting a little teary-eyed thinking about it, man. But yeah, so the Lost Boys, that's the name of our new project. We're the Lost Boys on Twitter. We got a Patreon going. We're gonna have a YouTube going. Our first YouTube video is going to go up probably tomorrow. That's going to be 8:10 around noon, where Matt Courier and I just talk about the game, our experience getting into it, as well as just how the game works and stuff. And I think it's going to be good stuff.
Awesome. When you said Lost Boys, that was not my head went to the vampire Keith Sutherland.
Yeah.
That's where I went to. And that actually makes more sense now you explained through Hook. I was like, yeah, okay, no, that makes more sense. Do you think they're going to do like a online kind of thing for Lorcana? Do you think they're going to have some kind of game set up?
I can't speak for them specifically. I think it would be foolish not to. Someone has already created a platform that can do it, right? In a very short period of time between the game being announced and the engine being described. and the card's being released, someone already has created a program that can play it and it's functional. It might not look the prettiest or whatever, but like I grew up in an age where we were playing on Apprentice before Magic Online, right? And we were having to connect to each other through IRC channels. And the game itself, the engine didn't work in the game, and everything was manual, and it was mostly just for playtesting. You couldn't really do tournaments on it because it was like very easy to cheat if you wanted to cheat. But in this instance, like the program has the engine already built into it, and if the engine is that easy to program in something like Unity or whatever, I feel like Ravensburger would just be leaving a ton of money on the table by not having an online program. And Disney is not about that, flesh and blood life or whatever. They don't want it to be like only in the stores, but they want the original release to be store centric and store focused, because they understand that their biggest consumer is not the humans, it is the distributors, it is the LGS. And so that's where they're attacking at in their initial run. I feel like it would be a no-brainer within the next 2 years to have an online program. We're going to be using the current one is called Pixelborn, and we're going to be using that to play test, and we're going to be using that to actually show people how to play the game and stuff as we go. But Pixelborn is not monetized. If they get a cease and desist, that's fine. Like, no one's going to bat an eye. We just want to play the game, and I think that they know that we just want to play the game. And they're having not like distribution issues. They just had a very small print run for their first time in the game, and everyone's allocation at the stores. I've talked to a bunch of store owners. They're just like not getting more than 12 boxes or whatever, and so it's just going to be very difficult for people to physically get cards. And so what we're looking to do, I'm going to be working with Apex Gaming, not only this weekend for their Big Magic weekend, which we're going to be doing, but I'm also going to be working with them to try to put on Lorcana tournaments over the next few months. We're going to start with limited. We're going to figure out some different ways we can do limited. We're going to be hopefully trying to do like an invitational style event where we can experiment with the engine and experiment with how to do limited. And I think that that's one thing that people don't understand when it comes to new games like this. The companies themselves, they produce the game, they create the engine, but they don't have control over what we do with the game pieces, and we can kind of just build our own version of Commander. We can build our own version of drafting, and we don't necessarily have to listen to their guidelines, especially if we think those guidelines are wrong or flawed. And so we're just at the perfect time in the game's very short lifespan so far. It's not even physically released to the public yet. Game stores get them, I believe, not this weekend, but next weekend. And then the big box stores and Amazon get them on September 1st. And that's when the majority of people are going to be able to get their hands on physical cards. But until then, we have the digital program. We have the ability to brew decks and talk about the cards and look at the art and stuff. And the buzz on Twitter has been really, really nice. And the people who want to play the game are very excited about the game. And Apex as a store is very excited about Lorcana as a game as well. And I'm going to help them just push Lorcana into this day and age.
So Lorcana, can you draft it like you would Magic? Is that like a thing you could do with Lorcana? Because I don't know I've just seen some cards, so like I don't know a ton about the game right now.
So the current way that they suggest doing a draft, if you want to do a draft, is 4 booster packs instead of 3, because booster packs are only 12 cards instead of 15. And you can play anything you like, and you can play as many colors as you like. And the only things you can do is that if you want to play a card as a land, it has to have the symbol that says it can be played as a land. And so those types of cards are just going to be drafted like very aggressively, very quickly. But everyone's kind of just like 5-color, 6-color prismatic when you're playing limited. But that's something that I want to fix. I don't think that that's very good because it doesn't mimic the constructed part of the game. And I think that one of the biggest draws of Magic in terms of limited versus constructed is that the being able to kind of mimic what constructed is doing via limited, but also just having its own restrictions, I think was really cool. And having no restrictions, I think, just does not feel very fun. Then you're just, throwing your best stuff at each other. So what I want to try to do is a couple different experiments to mess around with it and see if we can build a better limited format. I think drafting in general is just going to be a non-starter for the most part if you want to have any sort of deck building restriction. But they have pre-cons where they have these 2-color decks that you can buy. And I want to do like those as like a starter deck. You choose your own starter deck, and then you buy 3 booster packs on top of that, and that's like the sealed deck. And you just pick the best cards you get in your 2-color combination, and you put those into your deck. Now, some of my friends have suggested that maybe we do that in reverse, where we open our 3 booster packs, we see what our strongest colors are, and then we choose our pre-constructed deck afterwards.
Either way, that sounds pretty cool. Like, that sounds like a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a big hit. I think that just playing the physical game has been really fun so far. We haven't even gotten close to being able to play real constructed yet because people just don't physically have enough cards.
Yeah.
The card availability is going to be an issue for multiple months until they maybe do like a big print run in late September or October. I'm not really sure what even the plans are for that, but I would hope that with the buzz that they have over the game that they would just put out a huge print run of the chapter 1. That's what they call their first set. It's the first chapter. So hopefully they have another print run of the first chapter, and we get access to some of the cards actually play constructed. But until then, we're going to try to come up with some fun experimental ways to stream Lorcana tournaments over Apex Gaming, and I'll be working with Bomat on our Lost Boys project for the foreseeable future.
I'll definitely be checking those out because it's definitely something that I know at least me and my wife are kind of interested in, and my cousin's kind of interested in Lorcana. So it'd be kind of nice to have, another cool card game rotation because, like, Yu-Gi-Oh was okay when I was a kid, but it's like everything's a turn 1 solitaire now. And then Pokemon, I don't know. I like the cards. I just haven't really gotten into it very much. And I feel like Disney, is maybe a little bit more. I don't know if accessible is the right word, but I think a little bit more interest.
It's mainstream.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's mainstream, and so you just have people who might not necessarily want to play these card games without the IP. They just see the IP that they're already attracted to, and so it's just like a natural conclusion that people are going to play the game who wouldn't normally play Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic.
Right, and then I want to ask you. We can maybe end on this one if you want. I just want to ask you, since you're a full-time Magic player, full-time content creator and everything, what is kind of like that daily work structure like?
So when I worked for Star City Games, my daily routine when I was streaming regularly was, I would wake up about an hour before my stream started, get some food, I would get my decks situated for the day, and I would start my stream around 11 or noon or 1 whenever, my schedule is just different every time I have like a change of heart or whatever. But I would stream for roughly 3 to 5 hours. I'd play 2 or 3 leagues. I'd talk about my decks, the changes, yada yada. And whatever I was doing well with that week, that was kind of what I would lean into to write my articles about. Whenever I was working for Star City, there was, I don't want to say I was overmanaged, but I wasn't necessarily able to have creative control. And I would like pitch some stuff to my bosses to write about. And they would usually lean on towards the thing that was safest as opposed to the thing that I told them specifically that I would rather do this, but here are 2 topics I can write about. And now though, as my own boss or whatever, I just get to do whatever I want. And even if it's not Pioneer PTQ season, guess what? I'm going to write about Pioneer because it's a format that a lot of people like and I like playing it. And I got some stuff to say about it. I don't want to like poo-poo on anybody's dreams or whatever, but if you want to become a Magic creator, if you want to become a content creator full-time, you have to put your heart and soul into it, and you don't have to do it under the premise of making money. If you want to make a bunch of money, go do anything else, because this is a labor of love, and it took me, 10, 15 years of just playing the game as hard as I could, as many hours as I could, to physically get good enough at the game so that I was able to win tournaments with regularity. And without that ability and without that recognition in your field, people aren't going to necessarily care what you have to say or care what you think when it comes to the game, because you don't have the results to back it up. Now, you can subvert this by being just naturally very funny or entertaining or good, or you can have a shtick or you can just get really lucky and find a more casual thing to lean into. Like Commander has been a boon for Magic content. So many people have been able to make Magic content, and they don't have the results that someone like Jerry Thompson had or whatever, right? And so full-time content creation for them doesn't isn't predicated on those results. And because of that, we're just having a huge burst in people who want to make content, and it's based on whether or not they're entertaining and doing entertaining things, like doing wacky commander decks. Like creativity in the commander space, I think, is just a huge draw for people. But that's not where I live. I live in the cutthroat competitive. I'm going to show you how to win your tournaments. I'm going to build the decks that are going to win the tournaments. I'm going to take the newest set and I'm going to pick the 3 cards that I like the most, and I'm going to spend 1 week on each card building as many different cool variants of that card as I can. I did it with Tyvar, huge hit, a lot of success with that. It was very fun. I did it with Rona when it first came out, and that was really, really great. But that's just kind of been my shtick for the last year. Just like whenever a new set comes out, find the 3 cards that I love, build around them as hard as I can, and hopefully people enjoy it. And it's been working out for me so far ever since I had to go out on my own. So
that's cool. That's cool. Well, I want to thank you for doing this. It was nice meeting you, talking to you.
You too.
And I'm excited about coming up this weekend to Codwell. It's cool to have something. It's about an hour and 20-minute drive for me, but it's
that's easy. That's nothing.
It's not bad. So it's kind of nice to see something of this size kind of be semi-local. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about it, and I'm hoping it can continue to grow. And it's nice to see. We had the Pro Tour, the Modern Pro Tour and stuff a couple weekends ago, and it's just nice to see. Kind of nice to see this competitive space kind of come back, because I'm not a sports fan, but I love to watch like esports. You know what I mean? So It's cool to see it kind of come back. So very excited about Apex.
Apex is doing some great stuff. I really enjoy working with them. Kyle Huck, the primary owner, or I don't know how the nomenclature or whatever, but his passion for that business is so wonderful to see. There was a couple different times where we came where tournament attendance far exceeded his expectations, and so he increased the prize pool by he scaled it so that the prize pool increased based on the attendance. But he would just do all store credit or whatever, right? And that type of thing. He's not out to make a huge profit on the players. We're more interested in the big picture stuff. We're reinvesting in the Magic scene so that it can help it grow. And we're doing a lot of that by, inviting content creators like yourself. We're offering free entry to a lot of these content creators into our events just to soften the blow. When you travel to a Magic tournament, oftentimes you got to pay for gas both ways, food all day that you might normally not have to spend because you're at home or whatever. Hotel sometimes, but then tournament entry is a killer sometimes. $55, $60, $40, it all adds up over time. And we're just glad to be able to provide a little bit of help for the community members that we reach out to, and we're glad to have you, Mick.
Yeah, I'm excited to come, and I'm bringing Saturday for Modern. I'm bringing my cousin and a buddy of mine.
Hell yeah!
So it's going to be pretty good. And then Sunday, I'm planning on doing a couple of videos on over the weekend, going up there, kind of vlog style. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really fun, and it's just cool to have something like this. That's not maybe we should get a hotel kind of drive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's a 2-day event. We're kind of blowing the doors off. Saturday's the 5K Modern. Sunday's the 2K Pioneer. We're having special guests like Corey Baumeister and Young Dingo, the streamer, coming out, and they're going to be playing in the event. Corey's going to be doing his backpack stream in the other room from the event, so it's going to be really nice to have him there for the weekend. But we have a lot of other content creators who we're excited to meet. And we're going to do a meet and greet thing. On Sunday night, we're going to have all the content creators that we invited come over to Kyle's house for pizza and cool. A good hangout. It's going to be a good time. So we're glad to have you, Mick, and we're looking forward to this weekend. That's Apex Gaming, Caldwell, Ohio, 8/11, 8/12, and 8/13. Make sure to come on out and say hi to me and Corey Baumeister and Young Dingo. And the Mick.
Yes, and then I guess I'll ask one more question. Sunday for the Pioneer. the video I'm doing. I want to know your opinion on how you think this might go as a prediction. I'm taking a Pioneer Challenger pre-build from Magic through the tournament. How do you think that's going to run?
What's the pre-build? I need to know.
The
I
Gruul
can't
Stompy.
give you. It's what?
The Gruul Stompy one. The one that's got like Glorybringer,
Gruul Stompy.
Chandra. Yeah.
So I love the like ramp into big dragons deck, and those pre-constructed decks are pretty good compared to.
I was surprised when I opened
the historical pre-constructed decks. You know, they really juiced them up a couple years ago when they made those. And I mean, there's like almost a full Lotus Field deck in those, right? Like if you just picked up the old Lotus Field deck and played that through the tournament, I think you'd maybe make top 8 if you know what you're doing. And so the Glorybringer deck, you know, does it have 8 elves in it?
Yep.
Yeah, if it's got 8 elves and Glorybringer, you can't lose. I think you're going to do well.
All right, cool. Thank you again. It was great to meet you, and I'm excited.
Hey, you too, Mick. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
I just want to say thanks to Tandy for doing this. It was an honor to talk to him. There's a group of players that I kind of like when I was getting into Magic, kind of followed and watched a lot, and he was one of them. So to actually sit and talk to him for a while was really cool. So thank you so much for doing this again. Also, if you want to know anything about the Apex Gaming esports, you can check in the links down below to all that stuff, as long as well with all of Tandy's links in the description down below, and mine too. If you want to support the channel, you can consider subscribing or becoming a member. And if you want to support Tandy, all the links down below. He is an amazing player. You can literally see the accolades behind him. He's a very decorated veteran of the game. So thank you again for doing this, and I will catch you next time. Peace.